I always believed that when you love someone, really love them, you stay. You don't flinch when it gets hard. You show up. You carry each other. That's what I thought marriage meant. My name is Emily. I'm 35. And this is my side of revenge. Stay with me as I tell you how the man who once promised to love me in sickness and in health turned his back the moment sickness became real. How I had to fight the darkest battle of my life with no hand to hold but my own. If you've ever been abandoned when you needed someone the most, please subscribe. This channel isn't just about stories. It's about giving a voice to pain no one else saw. You deserve to be heard. He and I had been married for 6 years. We weren't one of those fairy tale couples, no constant sparks or movie scenes. But it was solid, predictable, safe. Our routines were comforting. Saturday morning pancakes, the same show every Tuesday night, road trips once in a while when our schedules allowed it. He wasn't the romantic type, but I never needed roses. I just needed presence. He was practical, logical, always making lists, checking boxes. I used to tease him that if I were hit by a truck, he'd respond with a spreadsheet and a snack. But I figured, when it mattered, he'd be there. That deep down, he cared in his own quiet way. I started getting tired. Not regular tired, bone-deep, aching tired. I thought I was overworking. I was 35, juggling my job, family expectations, a house that never stayed clean. Everyone's tired, right? Then I started bruising. My skin would show weird dark patches just from leaning against things. My gums bled when I brushed. I'd walk up the stairs and feel like I'd run a marathon. I was pale. My periods were off. My body felt foreign. I made a doctor's appointment. He said he couldn't come. Back-to-back meetings. I didn't push it. I went alone. Did the blood tests. Told myself it was probably anemia or hormones, something fixable. When they called back, I was sitting at my desk at work. The nurse's voice was soft, too soft. She said, "Emily, we need you to come in. There's something in your blood work." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I asked, "What is it?" She hesitated, then said it. "Leukemia, stage 2. Aggressive." It felt like my soul left my body. I locked myself in the office bathroom and sat on the floor. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, stunned, repeating it in my head like it would eventually make sense. Cancer. I had cancer. That night, I cooked dinner like usual, set the table, tried to breathe normally. When he walked in, I told him, straight, honest. "I have leukemia." He blinked, nodded, asked, "What kind?" Not a hug, not a tear, no shaking hands reaching for mine. Just facts. Like I had told him the car needed new tires, I told myself he was in shock, that it would hit later, that he'd process it and then be there the way a husband should. But he didn't. He started disappearing. Bit by bit. The same man who used to ask what I wanted for breakfast stopped asking if I'd eaten at all. He missed my first oncology appointment. Said he had a presentation. He forgot to pick up my prescription. I reminded him. He said, "You didn't tell me." I began chemo 2 weeks later. He didn't come with me. I sat in the cold plastic chair as the needle slid into my vein. Alone. No one to hold my hand. No one to whisper, "We've got this." Just me. A drip bag. And a hollow silence where love used to live. The first chemo session lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of nausea and metallic taste, and the strange, quiet ticking of machines that sounded louder than my thoughts. The nurse kept checking on me, trying to make small talk. I nodded, smiled when I could. But I kept glancing at the door. He wasn't coming. I had told him the time, the location, everything. He said he had work, but might stop by if he could get away early. He never did. When I got home, pale and dizzy, he was watching a game. He asked, "How did it go?" without taking his eyes off the screen. I showered and cried quietly under the water, not just from the pain in my bones, but from the ache in my heart. I didn't expect him to fix everything. I just expected him to show up. But he didn't. Over the next few weeks, my body changed. I lost my appetite. My skin dulled. I started losing strands of hair, at first just a few on the pillow, then clumps. The first time I held a handful of my own hair in the mirror, I stared at it like it belonged to someone else. I didn't even recognize my own face. He barely looked at me. I noticed he started going out more. Suddenly there were work dinners, team drinks, a lot of late nights. He always had an excuse, always a reason I shouldn't worry. But worry became my full-time job. I was already fighting for my life. Now I was quietly fighting for my marriage too. He stopped touching me. I told myself it was because he didn't want to hurt me, that he didn't know how to navigate my fragile state. But it was more than that. It was avoidance, disgust. He couldn't even stand to brush past me in the kitchen, like I had become some kind of walking reminder of everything uncomfortable. One night, I found him asleep on the couch. No blanket, no pillow. Just laid out like he didn't plan to come to bed. When I asked him why, he said, "You need space." I didn't. I needed comfort. But I didn't argue. What was I supposed to say? That I felt like I was dying and he made it worse? The physical side effects were one thing, the vomiting, the fatigue, the dizziness. But the emotional side effects? They were worse. I'd sit on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., dry heaving, and hear him snoring in the next room like it wasn't his wife in pieces just feet away. And it hit me. He was surviving me before I was even gone. One morning, I fainted in the kitchen. I remember reaching for the toaster, and then nothing. Just a thud and darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was on the floor. He wasn't home. He hadn't left a note. My phone was still in the bedroom. I had to crawl to it, drag myself across the floor to call my sister. She came. She cried when she saw me, helped me up, took me back to her place for a few days, said I needed warmth, a real home. He didn't call to check in. Not once. When I came back, nothing had changed. My toothbrush was dry. My meds were untouched. The house smelled like takeout and old socks. He didn't ask how I was doing, just nodded and went back to his laptop. That night, I stared at him from across the room. I tried to remember what I saw in him. I tried to remember why I married this man. And all I could feel was distance. He wasn't just absent. He was gone. I don't remember the exact moment it broke in me. There was no screaming, no shattering plates or dramatic music swelling in the background. Just silence. Just me, standing at the sink, washing a glass with hands that were too thin, too weak, and shaking from the cold ache in my bones. And he walked in like nothing was wrong. He dropped his bag on the table, took off his jacket, and started scrolling through his phone. Not a glance in my direction. Not a, "How are you?" Not even a nod. Just silence. That kind of silence that wraps around you like plastic and squeezes until you can't breathe. And I just stared at him. Not with anger, with exhaustion. I was holding a glass under the water and I realized I couldn't feel the water anymore. My fingers were numb. My whole body had gone quiet. I was past sadness, past disappointment. What I felt was emptiness, like he had drained the last piece of me without even noticing. I turned off the tap, dried my hands, walked to the living room and stood in front of him. He didn't look up, so I said it. not loud, not harsh. Do you even care if I live or die? He blinked, looked up, stared at me like I had asked him what time it was. What kind of question is that? He said. The real kind, I replied, because it doesn't feel like you do. He sighed, rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. You always take things too far. That was it. That sentence broke whatever I had left. I sat down across from him. My voice didn't shake. It didn't crack. It was calmer than I expected. You haven't held my hand once since I got diagnosed. You didn't come to chemo. You didn't check on me when I fainted. You didn't even call when I left this house. I could have died on that kitchen floor, and you wouldn't have noticed until the dishes piled up. He scoffed. I'm trying my best, Emily. I still go to work. I still pay the bills. What more do you want from me? What more? I said. I wanted a husband, not a roommate with a credit card. He stood up, like he was offended, like I'd just attacked him out of nowhere. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered. There it was. The truth. I didn't respond. I just nodded. I heard it loud and clear. He didn't sign up for this. For me? For illness? For weight loss and tears and pills in the night and hospital waiting rooms. He had signed up for comfort. For weekends at the lake and home-cooked meals and a wife who smiled and made things easy. But life got hard, and he left without ever walking out the door. That night, I packed a small bag, just some clothes, my meds, my insurance papers. I told him I was staying with my sister for a while. He didn't ask how long. He didn't try to stop me. He just nodded and said, okay. I walked out of that apartment and felt the air hit my skin like a slap. It was winter, but the cold didn't hurt the way he did. Nothing could. My sister held me for a long time when I showed up at her place. I didn't have to explain. She knew. Everyone did. You don't have to say much when the grief sits on your face like a bruise. That night, lying in her guest room, wrapped in blankets and breathing slowly, I thought, maybe it's time I stop asking for someone to care. Maybe it's time I start choosing me. It was 3 weeks after I moved in with my sister when he sent the message. No call, no voice, just a short, cold text. I think we need space. Maybe some time apart is for the best. I hope you understand. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes, waiting for something else to come through. A follow-up. A sentence that sounded like he still cared, even if just a little. But nothing came. Just that short paragraph that might as well have been copy-pasted from a breakup handbook. Space. Time apart. Hope you understand. Understand what, exactly? That he didn't have the stomach for my illness? That my shaved head and my IV bruises were too much to look at? That his version of love had an expiration date? And this was it? I never replied. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for bailing while I fought for my life? Number, I put my phone down. And I cried. Not the kind of cry that rips out of your throat. This one was quieter. The kind that soaks your pillow without making a sound. The kind that feels like it's coming from your bones. My sister came in and held me. She didn't ask what happened. She just rubbed my back like I was a child again and let me feel it. The next day, I went back to our apartment, not for him, for my things. I walked in, and the first thing I noticed was how clean everything looked. Too clean, like a place no longer lived in. My side of the bed was still made, like he hadn't touched it. Like I had been gone for years, not days. I moved quietly, grabbing my clothes, my skincare, the few books I couldn't leave behind. I paused in the bathroom and saw my old hairbrush, still full of strands I didn't have anymore. That broke me for a second. Then I found it, on the kitchen counter, a note. It was short. His handwriting was rushed. "I'm sorry it ended like this. I just couldn't do it." That was it. Not, "I loved you." Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "I wish things were different." Just, "I couldn't do it." I stared at that sentence like it was in another language. I couldn't do it. I was the one doing it. I was the one dragging myself to chemo. I was the one losing my hair, my strength, my peace, piece by piece. I was the one fighting to survive, and he was the one who couldn't handle it. It wasn't that he couldn't, it was that he wouldn't. And honestly, maybe that was the blessing in disguise, because now I knew. There was no grey area. No, maybe he'll come back. No, he just needs time. He was gone. Officially. And somehow, that kind of pain, it cleared something in me. For the first time in months, I knew exactly who I was. Not a wife, not a patient, not a burden. I was a woman standing in the ashes of her own life and realizing she still had breath in her lungs and fight in her chest and nowhere to go but forward. People think revenge is loud, that it's dramatic, that it involves shouting, exposing someone, maybe even throwing a drink across the room. But that's not what happened to me. My revenge came quietly, no fireworks, just survival. I finished chemo. It was brutal. Some days I couldn't stand. Other days I wanted to scream. But I showed up, session after session, appointment after appointment, breath after breath. I got used to the nurses' faces. They started calling me the strong one. I hated that label, but I wore it anyway, because being strong was all I had left. There were nights I lay in bed with my chest burning, my stomach turning, my fingers numb. But my spirit never quit. I kept imagining a version of me on the other side of this, not the sick version, not the broken wife, but a woman standing tall in her own skin again. My sister never left my side. She cooked when I couldn't lift a spoon. She braided my hair when it started falling out. She held me when the world felt too heavy. If there's one thing cancer taught me, it's that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. But when it does, it's sacred. He never called, never checked in, never asked how I was doing. And weirdly, I stopped expecting him to. I stopped checking his social media, stopped replaying our memories, stopped hoping he'd regret it all and come running back. Because I realized the real revenge was healing without him. Months passed. My body slowly started recovering. My hair came back, thinner but softer. I got stronger, started walking further, smiling more, sleeping through the night without waking in panic. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Me. Not the version of me he broke, not the woman waiting to be loved back, but someone new, someone whole. I got a job offer in another city, a non-profit for cancer awareness. They wanted someone who could speak from experience. I packed up, moved into a small, sunlit apartment, and started over. A year later, I was invited to speak at a cancer survivors event. I stood in front of a room full of people who had stared death in the face and said, "Not yet." I told my story, not about the man who left, but about the woman who stayed, about the body that fought, about the heart that kept beating. And afterward, someone came up to me and said, "Your story saved me." That was it. That was the moment I knew. I didn't need to get even. I didn't need to hurt him the way he hurt me. Life had already done that. Because one day, he'll wake up and realize the woman he walked away from became someone he'll never deserve again. It's been 2 years. 2 years since I walked out of that apartment, since I sat on that bathroom floor with chemo in my veins and a hollow in my heart. 2 years since I begged a man to love me through the darkest moment of my life, and he chose not to. I haven't heard from him since. No apology, no explanation, just silence. But I don't need it anymore, because I've built something better in the quiet he left behind. A new life, a new circle, a version of me that doesn't need to be held up by someone else to stand tall. Cancer took a lot from me, my health, my strength, my marriage. But it gave me something too. It gave me truth, clarity, and a mirror I couldn't look away from. And in that mirror, I didn't just see a woman who survived. I saw a woman who healed, who grew, who refused to stay broken. So if you're listening to this right now, and you've been left, abandoned, forgotten in your pain, please hear me when I say this. You are not unlovable. You are not weak. You are not what they did to you. You are still here. And that's everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to keep going with no one clapping for you, if you've ever felt invisible while you were falling apart, I hope my story reminded you that your strength is seen, even if it was born in silence. This channel is for the ones who were left behind and still found a way forward. Please subscribe if this touched you, because one by one we're telling the stories no one else hears. And this is my side of revenge.